You're like the cutest black cat ever. You're cuter than Thackeray.
Let's set the scene. It's Halloween, Samhain, All Hallows Eve, the veil is thin and the pizza is hot. It's a bit of a different vibe this year, but that familiar force is still out there alive in the ether, vibrant and pulsing like the light of a jack-o'-lantern's grin. It still speaks right to our inner child, as it does this time every year, making us as susceptible to Sarah Sanderson's siren song whether we're 4 or 40. So welcome, dearest Coven members, to a spookier slumber party this evening with Ray of 5x5 and Sarah of Calling Corners, as we break down and geek out over the witchy, magical, and mystical media of the 80s, 90s, and more, and serve up some treats and tricks in this special episode, a double feature of sorts. So light your black flame candles and let's get this slumber party started. We've officially kickstarted episode 5, our Halloween special.
Woof.
So tonight's podcast, we'll be chatting all things Hocus Pocus, that special gem of a film that resonated with so many of us in our formative years and has been shaping Halloween feels since 1993. Part 2, we'll timestamp part 2 below for you, in case you just want to stick around for that, where Ray and I will be serving up and breaking down both of our top 10 favorite horror movies of all time lists for you.
Not stressful at
Not stressful at all.
I didn't care. Whatever.
Right?
I'm crying internally.
Totally low-key, super chill. Did you grow up watching this movie? It was one of my go-tos, and I'm so glad that I kept going with it, because a lot of the stuff from my childhood, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I was like, oh, that's not cool. Don't tell anyone you're into it, whatever. But I still watched Hocus Pocus whenever I could. I loved it very much. Yeah, I was taken with this movie from the jump too when I saw it in 1993. So I was Dani's age. Dani, what is her last name? Denison. So yeah. So I was her age when the movie came out. It stuck with me. I watched it every year. It's a personal classic, like it is for a lot of people in our age range, I'd say.
Yeah.
You know, as you and I both mentioned, I had a huge crush on Omri Katz. So
yeah, I thought he was the coolest dude.
Same.
The coolest. And I grew up wanting to be a Goonie. I was so desperate for just some cool girls to be in movies and TV shows and shit. I would have thrived as a human, I'm sure, if there was just one actual legit cool chick in Goonies, that wanted to be part of it and enjoyed the adventure. Rewatching it now, legitimately, I'm 34, and I was like, I wish I was as cool as Dani when I was that age.
I know, she was such a wise character.
Yeah, and just didn't care. She was just like, I'm gonna just say and do what I think is cool and what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was not that kid at all.
I feel like I was for a little while, but kind of like how you mentioned before, it's like you mention a thing and everyone shits on you for it, and it's like, it's like you learn to kind of sharpen or cut off the parts that are a little weird or that don't fit in and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I even said this before to you. I remember trying to show Close Encounters of the Third Kind to someone when I was 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was the best movie that's ever been made. Not even halfway through was like, oh, I gotta go home. She was just so bored and not into it or thought it was weird or whatever.
Right.
So I was like, well, obviously I won't talk to anybody about any movies I like from here on in. And it actually me up for a long time. I never really... In high school, there was a handful of you humans that were like, oh, Evil Dead is great. And I was like, it is great. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
It even carried into my 20s. If I've known humans that are now listening to this podcast, they'd be like, I didn't know that you like these movies that much.
Yeah. I think that girls get a weird, it's a weird position to be in when you're a girl that likes horror. Not so much now probably, but definitely when we were coming up.
Yeah.
There was kind of this veil over it, which people kind of assumed you liked it because you were trying to impress somebody.
Yeah. And there was always different standards on proving your loyalty to a degree. Like, that sounds so intense, but I think you'll know what I mean when it's like, women, who was the sound director for Army of Darkness? It's like, what? Who knows that?
Yeah, it was a thing where it was like, you couldn't just love a movie because you connected to a movie.
But I do find that that's why I like horror so much, is because, especially in like the last 50 years, like it's focused more on like the women and the final girl. Oh, which I have final girl patches. I don't know if you.
I need like so many of those. Those are amazing.
So precious. Because like, I love final girls. Like,
Me too.
I love final girls. That's one thing about horror that I love, is that it's not just, it goes even beyond a little bit more of like the gender roles and stereotypes and everything like that. I love horror if it's well done. It's a true study of humans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is a human going to do if they're in a situation that is extremely out of their wheelhouse? What kind of person will you be? Will you be one of those people that completely melts into a ball in the corner and is useless? Or are you going to step up and you're going to make weird weapons out of shit that you find, and you're going to make a plan and survive? Like, I love it. It's so good.
It is. That's a great way of putting it, actually.
That's the type of horror that I like gravitate to. I'm going to say I don't gravitate to Saw. It's just almost like a gore for gore's sake.
I feel like when it comes to like depravity and horror, yeah, of course, people like there's an audience for that. But to me, it's just like uninteresting. It's not fun to watch. It's almost like, yeah, that is definitely a pissing contest. That is like, how much can you withstand of this? It's not for a story. And like the people in horror that have impacted my life, the best writers, the best directors, the best actors, have always been like story people.
Yes.
And circling back, actually, you know who's a good antidote for that is Mick Garris, who of course wrote this movie, Hocus Pocus.
Oh, right. Hocus Pocus.
So let's talk about Hocus Pocus.
Ebert gave it thumbs down. 1 star. Thought it was hard to follow, hard to sit through. This is another review that makes me think that he just came into the world as a 50-year-old man.
You're so right. This movie is so interesting. It is so funny. It is so compelling for the age range that it was made for. Like,
yes.
To this day, again, I'm a 34-year-old woman. This is one of the most original stories I've seen on film ever.
It's so much fun. There actually is a story. You can follow it. It's well crafted. Compared to our last review of Teen Witch, Teen Witch seemed to have no clue what it was trying to do. Like, at all, in any way, shape, or form. Hocus Pocus knew exactly what it was doing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It delivered. So this is why I don't understand. Like, how do you not get what Disney was trying to give you? How do you not understand it? Like, you came out of the womb in a sweater vest being like, I hated it, 1 star.
Here's the thing. You have, on one side, Mick Garris, who, again, as I said, is like one of our generation's like horror masters, master horror storyteller, keen eye for story. And then you have Disney. You have like this perfect combination, and it made the perfect thing.
Mm-hmm. And like, this is a thing that rewatching this movie, it made my heart so warm and happy, but also like kind of bummed me out in like the same time, because it reminded me of the best times. There's something about this movie, and we'll talk about it as we like break it down, but like there's certain times where I'm just, that is the magic that was my childhood.
It gave you the feeling.
Whatever formula this is, yes, this will never be replicated. Like, this feeling and this vibe and this time and this beautiful whatever the Disney was doing, it's never going to be replicated again. So I'm super pumped that I was like actually living it when it happened.
I know, this is back to our wheelhouse. We watched this in the right era at the right age. I like it. This is a comfortable place to be, right? So there's something I'll reference later, but it was a book that had this great quote in regard to Halloween. It was somehow the Halloweens ahead of us are made better by the ones we've lived in our past. And it's so true. It's like an accumulative thing, right?
Yeah.
And this is just a movie that captures that whole essence.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna kind of skip ahead because this was the big takeaway for me rewatching it, is that I miss Halloween. I really miss Halloween. Like how it was when I was younger growing up. It was so much bigger and better. And it wasn't just one of those things where it's like, you know, when you're younger, you're like, this room is huge. And when you go into it again when you're 30, you're like, this is like 4x4 room.
Yeah.
It wasn't that.
No.
It was like Halloween was big and magic and fun.
Yeah.
Everyone of all ages decided to participate. People decorated more. People cared more. Everyone had outfits and made stuff. It was great.
Yeah.
And now they wear pajamas.
Yeah.
That's your pajamas.
Circling back to like the whole witchcraft of things, it almost like feels like it was like a spell that everyone was participating in, that everyone like allowed a little bit of their life force, and you could feel it, like truly.
I like that. Yes, you could feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, I think that's why I go back to this movie so much, is that there's something about it that just gets inside of me and just makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
I know. I totally feel you. I wrote a little quick summary, but do you want to check out the IMDb? As has become a ritual.
Oh, you betcha. A curious youngster moves to Salem when he struggles to fit in before awakening a trio of diabolical witches that were executed in the 17th century.
So we'll give you our summary here. If you're not familiar with it, I don't know who would not be familiar with Hocus Pocus at this point.
It's terrible if you're not.
What are you doing? Stop listening to this and go watch it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Halloween Grinch and young realist Max Dennison is not happy about moving to from LA to Salem, Massachusetts with his family. Because they call him Hollywood in it, which is hilarious, I think.
Which is so good.
Navigating the loss of old friends, new bullies, and a burning crush on Halloween-loving Allison, his troubles are doubled when he is tasked with taking his younger sister Dani trick-or-treating. His troubles become tripled after Showing Off lifts the veil and allows 3 long-dead evil witches to come back for one night. Max, Dani, and Allison are tasked with foiling the witches' evil plans, saving the town, and making sure their parents never find out, all with the help of a 300-year-old immortal cat. Released in theaters in July 16th, 1993. So I don't understand.
Disney had no faith in it. They thought it was a trash movie. Typically, you know, summer, like July and August, is kind of like where you dump movies that you don't think are going to perform.
True. But I just feel like, come on, guys. It's a Halloween movie. Like,
I know. Give it a chance.
Give it a chance. Hocus Pocus was directed by Kenny Ortega, who also famously directed Newsies in 1992, High School Musical in 2006, and also several episodes of The Gilmore Girls, which is also a ride or die for me.
I did not know that. Oh my God. I'm going to have to double check and see what episodes. And also, I love that you love the Gilmore Girls. That actually was one of the shows that made me realize as I age, my opinion changes. Because the first time I watched it, I was just like, I love Rory and I love Lorelai. They could do no wrong, whatever. But I rewatched the entire show. I was like, Rory's kind of a piece of shit a lot of the time. And Lorelai kind of sucks a lot of the time. But it still didn't stop me from loving them immensely.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so it's like With My So-Called Life. You know, it's like you watch it and you're like, oh, I'm Angela. And then when you watch it later, you're like, oh, I'm the mom. You know what I mean?
So true. It's kind of depressing, but at the same time, it's like a good like record of like where you are. Because you start relating to Rory, and then now it's like you relate to Lorelai, and it's just like, oh, this is aging.
But now, legit, I'm Team Emily. I know she's an asshole 90% of the time, but I'm like, no, girl, you're good.
So it's written by David Kushner, who basically had a hand in producing all of the Child's Play franchise.
Oh my God, great.
It was also written by Mick Garris, who I've already spoken about, who's amazing. Mm-hmm. So he's famously a horror director, writer, producer, and presenter. He's responsible for many of King's films, Desperation, Riding the Bullet, Bag of Bones, and you said Sleepwalkers too, yeah?
Sleepwalkers, yeah.
Masters of Horror series, which I know I've brought up in another podcast.
Yes!
Fear Itself, and he has a kick-ass podcast called Postmortem, so check that out as well.
Okay. I also started listening to a podcast, She Kills. I don't know if you saw it. It's like from Shudder, I guess.
Oh, okay.
They put it out. So it's just about a bunch of women in horror talking about horror movies.
I love that.
It's dope. Dee Wallace, I think, is her name. She's in The Frighteners. Oh, she's also in The Howling.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, she was the mom in E.T. She was on an episode and talked about like basically ghosts and spooks and all sorts of stuff. But now she's like a healer and she actually talks to people beyond and like does all this crazy stuff. And it was like really rad listening to her because she has a very straightforward approach about it. She's like, yeah, my husband died and I talk to him every day. She's like, it's not weird or anything. It's just there's signs and stuff and just translated, and like it was so nice to listen to.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, so those are the writers and director. So it's starring, of course, Bette Midler.
Bette Midler is a beast.
She's a beast.
She's so good in it.
She is. She has so much fun in this movie, I think. I think she's actually famously said that it's one of her favorite roles.
Yeah, it was like her favorite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me so happy. It makes me love Bette Midler even more.
Also Kathy and Jimmy,
who is Mary Sanderson, who's also the animated voice of the frickin' Queen Peggy Hill.
Also, I just looked on her IMDb page and it says that she's going to be in a short that's in production right now called Stomach People, and her character name is Miss Butt.
That's amazing. I have no idea what that's about, but...
I don't either, but I'm very intrigued.
And Sarah Jessica Parker, who plays Sarah Sanderson. So Sarah Jessica Parker is also famously married to Ferris Bueller.
She was also in Sex and the City, which I watched it all, and I don't think I liked any second of it.
No, I didn't. I had a friend who was super into it, and she sat me down for a lot of episodes, and I couldn't, not for me.
But she's good in this movie.
Oh, she's phenomenal. I love her in this movie. So also Thora Birch as Dani Dennison, who I didn't know is named after the Norse god Thor, legitimately.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes it even more precious.
Right? And she was you might know her from anything awesome in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. Ghost World is my go-to for Thora Birch.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah. Omri Katz, who plays Max Dennison. The lost gem of the 90s, frankly.
Oh my god, he's just doing hair in LA.
Oh. But he was in two of my favorite like pieces of media from that time, which Erie, Indiana.
Yes.
And also, did you see the movie Matinee?
People have been like, you need to see Matinee.
You need to see Matinee. Yes.
Okay.
It's a period piece, and it's just so good. It's so good.
Yeah, okay. This is just reaffirming the fact that I need to watch Matinee.
Yes. So he doesn't really act too much now. I don't think at all Omri Katz acts. No,
I think he's just kind of like, I think he's just a hairstylist.
Oh, I read that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just doing hair in LA, I think.
So wherever you are, Omri, just know that we love you.
A lot. Doug Jones plays Billy Butcherson, the zombie. Yeah, and he's played like a lot of just weird creatures.
Yeah, he's got a unique look.
So he played the creature from The Shape of Water, but also I forget the character's name from Hellboy, which is basically the same thing.
Right.
Underwater fin guy.
What an odd thing to be typecast as.
Right? Like you would not think that you would get multiple gigs.
Yeah.
So he went from this to being in an Academy Award-winning movie.
Well, you know what? I really liked Billy Butcherson in this. I think that he was a fun character. So, like, yeah. I think also, too, I think if we were to see, like, all of the footage uncut, he would have much more of, like, a backstory and, like, a history than what we saw on film.
Well, just goes to speak to his ability as an actor, because apparently, like, he doesn't really have a lot of lines. Like, the big one, obviously, because his mouth is
sewn shut.
But when he first cuts his mouth open and he like calls Winifred out, what does he even say? Some Firefly is all I remember right now.
Yeah, like,
but that was all
something.
Yeah, it was all ad-lib. He just like made that up on the spot.
I also read that he had actual moths in his mouth.
Yeah, everyone was just like blown away. He had actual moths in his mouth. which is weird.
So weird. But they were in like a little bag or something, so when he opened his mouth, they came out but wouldn't go down his throat.
Okay, because like they have dusty wings, and I feel like any moisture on dusty wings is a no-no. But that makes sense if they're in a bag.
Talk about being committed to the role, putting live moths in your mouth to give the effect of you being dead for hundreds of years.
It's just so weird. I've been like trying to find trivia and stuff on this movie, and like literally anything I read, I'm like, that seems too much for this movie.
Yeah.
The choreographer that was used to like help get the sisters their moves and everything like that would drive around with them and see how each of the actresses drove a car and would try to translate that into how they flew their brooms and vacuums. And I was like, that seems overkill.
That totally seems overkill. And you know the other thing I thought of too about that? I was like, if I was an actor playing one of the witches on a broom in this movie and the choreographer was driving with me, I have like extreme road rage. I would love to see how that like manifested on
just beeping the shit. Just beeping the shit out of that horn.
Yeah.
Penny Marshall and Gary Marshall, who are siblings, played the devil and his wife, which I find hilarious and weird.
Totally true. I didn't know that fact, but that is a fun little dynamic in the movie.
Yeah. So Penny Marshall, who plays the wife, was Laverne from Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
And Gary Marshall, who played the devil or the master, quote unquote, was he's like a famous writer and producer, but he's known for, get a load of this, Never Been Kissed.
Ooh.
Great movie, but also like real weird.
Yes.
Pretty Woman, but A League of Their Own, which I have to say is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks, Gary. The only real thing, like when going through the cast, I was like, I need to know, what is Ice doing right now? Like, what is Ice doing? And I have to tell you, I started digging until I got something that literally was probably from 1997, and I was like, I'm done digging. I don't care what happened to you after I found this fact out. Apparently, he was on The Young and the Restless. Whatever. He played Larry on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He played Larry on Buffy the Vampire.
Yeah.
It's all. I see it. I see it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone is listening to this and knows Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it was from high school. It was probably in season 3. Larry was the macho dude that was like, oh, just like your butt and titties.
Kind of a bully.
Yeah, but it turns out that he was gay and he was like very confused, and Xander helped him come out by accident, and that is Ice.
It was actually a very precious plot. Like, yeah. No, that's sweet. I didn't even think about it, but as soon as you said it, the picture just like popped in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I quite liked Larry. He was a great character in Buffy.
Yeah. So
I picked this up on one of the articles I'll link below on Oh My Disney, but I've also picked it up on something else that I'll reference later, which is of the story writer, David Krishner, who also was the producer, I think, on this movie.
Yes.
The story idea came from him telling his daughter, kind of like weaving her a tale after seeing the neighbor's cat creeping around, of like this 300-year-old cat that was kind of like cursed by witches. So the premise of this book, the premise of this story came from the Thackeray Binx storyline, which I love because frankly, that storyline is my favorite in the whole movie.
It is also for me. I watched a lot of reviews and read stuff, just trying to get a gauge of what people think of this movie. And a lot of people were like shitting on Dani's character because she was upset that Thackeray was going to be with his sister at the end. Also, spoiler alert, he goes to be with his sister at the end. Anyway, they were all upset that she was upset by it. Almost kind of like, bitch, he's been a cat for 300 years. Get over it. But I would have been a broken human. Broken. I just would have been so upset if that happened. In a scene earlier is cuddling him and is like, I'm going to take care of you. My kids will take care of you and their kids will take care of you. And it was like, ooh, so precious and lovely. I side with Dani.
Yeah, Dani and Thackeray, like that dynamic, I loved it.
I do have to say that I think Thackeray is probably my favorite character.
The Thackeray Binx storyline in this film was just like everything to me.
Yes, that's all I cared about when I was younger. I was just like this precious little beast.
Right?
Meh.
Right? I'm going to actually jump down because I have some notes about that. So this is what I wrote about it, and this is probably basically what you think as well, but I want to hear more about your thoughts. Okay, so the one thing about this movie that never failed to move me is the Thackeray Binx storyline. So I think that they provide a buffer with that, with the whole, oh, that's in the olden days. That's set in olden times. And since we're supposed to relate more to the modern kids, it provides that emotional buffer, I think, that's very helpful. But when you think back about what truly happened, so Thackeray watches his sister die in front of him.
Yes.
And then he gets turned into an immortal cat, so he can never be reunited with his family. In the story that unfolds Halloween night with Max and Dani and Allison, we watch that cat die twice. And I cry every time.
Yes!
I cried when I rewatched it the other day.
Yes!
Yeah.
Because it hurts your heart.
It hurts your heart. And even more so than the actual two deaths of the cat that we see is when the cat is at the beginning, like when they're going to hang the witches, and the dad asks where his son is, and the cat jumps down and is kind of weaving between his...
And then he's like, get away, beast.
Yes!
Oh.
It is tragic. It is tragic.
Yeah.
And my two favorite scenes in this whole movie were both Binx related. So the first is that part where he turns into a cat. So it's this like really rhythmic, really like interesting, like almost like musical spell that the witches put on him, like twist the bones and bend the back.
That scene I love, but also it infuriates me to no end that the spell doesn't rhyme.
Oh, really?
When they go just like this instead of that would have rhymed with literally everything, and they're like just like, and I get ready for it, and then they always disappoint me and just like get under my skin, and they go this.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that works, but also like, why wouldn't you rhyme it?
See, it's so funny. I never even really noticed that because I'm so taken with the fact that you can hear him screaming intertwined with like the meows. So like, what's happening.
I did not notice that because I think I was distracted by the fact that it doesn't rhyme. I need to rewatch it now. Okay.
And then the second scene that's my favorite is when they're in the graveyard and Winifred comes face to face with him for the first time when he jumps on the spell book, and she's like, what does she say? She's like, why, Thackeray Binx, thou mangy feline, still alive? And he goes, and waiting for you. I don't know. There's something about it that gives me like Hook vibes. Like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Bangarang. Yeah.
Bangarang.
Totally.
So I don't know, that the whole like Binx, the tragic tale of Binx, like I don't know, like to me that's really intense and very kind of like emotionally like tough to get through.
And I hate to admit it, but I do think that this movie was one of the reasons why I got a black cat. She was precious at the SPCA and lovely, but I think in my head I was like, she's gonna live to be 300 and talk to me eventually. I do have to say one of my favorite scenes is the musical number, because shit, I want to live in that town. What a great Halloween dance. That band was killer.
I know.
What? That's like Gilmore Girls shit. It's like, what kind of quaint fake town do you live in, and can I go to there?
Where everyone participates in the weird things.
Over the top. Like, but it made me again just like miss Halloween from like my childhood, because everyone committed in this movie. Like everyone was like, yeah, Halloween's the best. It's like, it is the best. It is the best. See, again, this movie knew what it was doing. Teen Witch, not so much. This movie knew it. They knew when to acknowledge that the witches had no idea about modern times, and they knew when to just let it roll and make some jokes.
Totally.
What was it? The burning reign of death?
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
The fact that worked. They didn't know what roads were. They thought they were rivers. Funny. They didn't know what a bus was. When the witches first get out and they get on the road and they're like walking and they do that like great like back and forth. And then when like there's just sirens that go up and they just have a moment of pause and then freak out and scream and run away.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That's funny and it works.
Yeah.
But then later when they're trying to pull over Max while he's driving and they make jokes about pulling over and like, do you have a driver's license? It's like, how do you know that, girl?
touching on the real witchcraft, like, this was really an interesting movie in that it was a Disney movie, but it had what I would say is unique from at least the last two films we've talked about, which is intentional witchcraft.
Yeah, okay.
Intentional things.
Yeah.
The first is probably the most obvious, which is the Salem witch trials. Like, this story obviously centers a lot on the Salem witch trials. We open with the year they took place in Salem, Massachusetts. So the Salem witch trials were real, and very much the movie leaned into the history of the Salem witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts. And the movie even takes place there. So it's not so much real witchcraft in that it's real history. The movie starts in 1693, which is kind of when the Salem witch trials were winding down. But in the winter of 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts, two young girls, Betty Paris, who was 9, and Abigail Williams, who was 11, started having fits. So it's hard to say what those were. Like, they could have been mental health related. They could have just been like they were kids acting like kids, you know. Yeah. They could have just been childish, disruptive. They could have taken ill because everything could kill you in the olden days.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Right? But they were diagnosed with a supernatural ailment, so they were considered bewitched by like the legitimate doctor.
Diagnosed with a supernatural ailment.
Right?
What a time to live.
What a time to be alive.
Oh my god.
They were formally diagnosed with a supernatural ailment. And the girls blamed 3 women, local women, saying that they were the ones responsible for bewitching them. So they were Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. The latter's name I've heard different versions of that name, so I'm not sure what is completely accurate, but those were the 3 women that were initially accused by the girls. So it's thought that the girls were inspired to behave in such a way after hearing stories of folk magic and spiritual things, and so perhaps to avoid punishment they decided, or were influenced to fault others for their actions. So whether those were mental, like I said, physical acting out, or just plain being a kid is very hard to say at this point. By the spring of 1692, the rumors, paranoia, and fear of the devil had manifested a court for judging people for witchcraft. Over 150 people and children were accused over the year. It seems most likely the names were spread by those that were accused, trying to evade torture and death. So giving names just sort of like off the cuff. But it also was political and stuff like that. You know, if you didn't like your neighbor, they might be a witch. Or if they had a bigger property than you, they might be a witch, you know? You know what I'm saying? There was a minister, Cotton Mather, who was basically just like, hey, my dudes, like, let's not use spiritual evidence in court. Doesn't seem legit. Spectral evidence is what they called it. So spectral evidence, well, actually, I'll give you the definition that the SalemWitchMuseum.com has on their website, which is spectral evidence refers to witness testimony that is accused, or that the accused person's spirit or spectral shape appears to him or her witness in a dream at the time that the accused person's physical body is at a different location, and was accepted in the courts during the Salem witch trials.
What? Humans are so stupid.
Right? So everyone else was like, no dice matter, this is basically DNA evidence. It's fine.
Oh my god.
So in June, the first woman, Bridget Bishop, was hanged after being convicted of witchcraft, followed by the others who were initially accused. I've read 13 and I've read 19, so I'm not sure what the total number is of the people who actually died by hanging after being convicted of witchcraft. But things started to wind down in 1693 after the governor's wife was accused, in which, no surprise, they were like, oh, we decided Mathers was onto something. It's chill. We're done here.
Yeah, let's pump the brakes on this.
Yeah. So that's like it in a nutshell, and clearly I wasn't quoting anything.
God.
Those weren't actual quotes I was using, obviously. But Mathers did say something, or he's like noted to have said, which is basically what I paraphrased, you will find. It would be better that 10 suspected witches may escape than one innocent person be condemned. So he was onto something, and it does suck, and it is weird, and there's a lot of history there, and it's worth looking into. So we'll give you some links below, but that's the main lion's share of what I found, like in terms of like the real stuff.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is the whole concept of the triple goddess, the maiden mother crone, in the 3 sister witches here. So I did have this in mind to talk about before I started the rewatch, because it was just such an evident sort of symbol, I guess. But there's a book that I'll recommend a little later called Hocus Pocus and Focus, The Thinking Fan's Guide to Disney's Halloween Classic by Aaron Wallace, who actually mentions the maiden mother crone thing. He refers in the book to the three sisters using the model, which he calls the Hecates, which is essentially the triple goddess. So Hecate was a Greek goddess, and she was representing magic and witchcraft. So very in keeping with the movie's themes anyway. But if we look at that as applied to the movie, we have the maiden, which is Sarah, you know, vibrant, youthful, sensual, enthusiastic, waxing moon. The mother, which is Mary, abundant, fertile, nurturing, collecting knowledge, full moon. And she does collect knowledge. I feel like Mary's the smartest one. If you hear her dialogue kind of throughout the film, she puts in some really like valid like little tidbits that like just go unnoticed by Winifred.
Yeah, because Winifred's a dick.
Yeah, such a dick. And but then we have the crone, which is of course Winifred, the elder wise woman, quote, and the waning moon. So if you're unfamiliar with the maiden mother crone model, in essence it's like describing the divine feminine, or like the goddess aspect of many types of paganism. She reflects many things, but predominantly reflects the stages of life, the phases of the moon, femininity, and knowledge. Not everyone that identifies as pagan subscribes to this model, because it is quite rigid, so that's fair. But generally, that at the very least, they're aware of it. I do think this was used intentionally in the movie.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think you know, we had, as I keep referring to him, we had Mick Garris behind this, so I think it was legit.
And if they went to the trouble of having a choreographer watch them drive so they knew how to fly a vacuum, yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I like. I like to touch on the real stuff. So I did find some quite real aspects in this, and definitely stuff that's worth cracking into the research if you want.
Yeah, because legitimately watching this, I was like, what's Sarah gonna have to say? Like, wow. But no, that's good. I like that. I like knowing things like this.
Yeah.
I like that you bring things to the table
Likewise.
that I would never have looked into.
Well, that's what I like about doing these with you, is we have such different things. Like even our approach to our top 10 list. I love it.
Oh my God. I have the tab open and I can see top 10 right there, and I'm trying to be chill, but
I'm a bit of a bookworm and was into like the book. So I've referenced a couple times in this the Hocus Pocus and Focus, The Thinking Man's Guide to Disney's Halloween Classic by Aaron Wallace. So this is a more academic look at the themes and the characters, and it also has a ton of fun facts. The foreword is by Thora Birch and the afterword is by Mick Garris, so it's worth it just for that. I think.
my God.
Yeah. I got it on like the Kindle app or whatever. It's worth it. I didn't read it all in full, but I got a lot of great information for my notes in this, and he brings up a lot of great things. Definitely worth checking out. And then the other one is Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel, which is of course the fiction sequel to the movie. Actually was just released in 2018 as the 25th anniversary to the film. So this was by A.W. Jantha is the author, and Matt Griffin is the illustrator. So I would like to suggest that A.W. Jantha doesn't exist and is just part of the Disney machine.
Okay.
I don't think when I looked up this author, they had no other credits to their name. So I think this is just like, you know, part of the Disney verse that they spit out. However, I did read it and I did like it. Which I didn't think I was going to. Just a bit about that. We're following Max and Allison's daughter 25 years later.
What?
Yeah, they got married. They fell in love and got married.
Shit.
And they had a daughter named Poppy, and so this is kind of her story. So the witches come back, and she's fighting them with her two friends, Travis and Isabella. So I loved this. I actually quite loved this book. There's a lot more diversity and there's queer representation. We do catch up with like Max, Allison, Dani, Binx, Billy Butcherson for a second as well. We see all of everyone.
Aw, okay.
We also catch up with Jay, the bully, who's the high school principal, and his daughter, who is the new bully.
Of course, cyclical. Got it.
And we also meet more of the Sanderson clan.
Oh, right. I remember reading something about, is it like Emily or something? There's like another sister.
Yeah, I think her name was Elizabeth in the book.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Something like that. And there's another secret one, which I won't mention in case you're interested.
Oh, shit. Yeah, because I'm probably gonna. Yeah, okay.
And there's
Cool.
also, in Binx fashion, there's a talking Boston Terrier as well, which I appreciate.
Okay.
Yeah. And my favorite character was this guy, Travis, who's kind of like this cool, geeky, like comic drawing, like occasional badass. He's like the best friend. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was good. I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. It's an original story as well. I found like it's a very good sequel to the movie.
Is it actually going to be made into a movie?
Now that I don't know, and I don't know if they keep it canon either. Like I don't know if they release a sequel, if it would be the book.
I do have to say that I really do enjoy Jay and Ernie, aka Ice, in the movie as the bully.
Me too.
I really do. I feel like they were like a perfect representation of the shittiness of the 90s.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Not even knowing how to refer to his friend as Ice. So good. The best part about that scene in the graveyard when Max is going through and they first meet him, he's so chill. Rewatching it, I was like, no wonder I loved Omri so much. When he's like, oh, you gotta, I forget what he says, like a butt or whatever. And he's like, oh, I don't smoke. And he's like, oh, I forget what else he asks him for. And he's like, no. And he's like, well, what am I gonna do with my afternoon?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know. Why don't you try breathing through your nose?
Oh, yeah, that was so good.
And like, I think it's Jay's like, oh,
yeah.
It's so good because he's so chill and he's just delivering insults like a champ.
So
it's
true.
So great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's so good. I found this article. I think you might have probably checked it out. It came up in my Google search. It was from the list. It was things about Hocus Pocus you only notice as an adult. And one of them was the bullies are left to die.
Yes, they are. He takes his shoes back and he's like, bye. That's it.
Peace out. Yeah. So funny.
But that's shit you don't care about when you're like 11. You don't care.
Exactly.
You're like, you got what's coming to you, mister. This is the stuff I feel like Disney will never be able to do again. There was a weird time, like in the 90s, where they did super dark, weird stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just what happened.
Yeah.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. That was a real weird movie. But they did it. Watching this movie and trying to like be critical of it put a lot of things in my noodle where I was like, okay, first of all, Halloween is not the same. Halloween used to be magic when I was a kid. Second of all, I don't remember seeing the super weird, creepy, paranormal witch vibe that happened in the 90s carry on much in the future when it came to like kids' entertainment.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Casper. It was like, hey, take your kids and watch Christina Ricci fall in love with a ghost. That was like a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think so much now. There's something like super strange and magical in the 90s that like I kind of wish I could like go back in time to just experience for just a day and then come back. You know, like
I feel you.
If I was to describe something that like was my childhood.
Yeah.
That scene where he gets his bike and he goes for that rip home. It's at the beginning of the movie, like after the kids leave school.
Yeah.
And Omri goes out Max goes out to get his bike. The music that's playing, it's so upbeat, exciting. And like, it's just that there's something about that one particular scene that is just my childhood.
Yeah.
The music and the way it's edited and it's put together and how he's trying to be cool biking and like all of that. It just rewatching it, I was just like, this is it. This is the perfect example of the feeling of childhood. Yes. Perfect.
I get you.
It made me so happy. That's probably my favorite scene. Absolutely nothing happens, but it's just like it soars inside of me. I'm like, oh, you remember what it's like to be 11? And I'm like, yeah, I do for a second. And it's great.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes. No, you're so right. I love that.
Yeah. Certain magic formula used in the 90s that just worked.
They really captured something in a bottle with this.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, like, you can go back and revisit it, and that well never dries. You'll always capture that soul every time you watch the movie.
Mm-hmm. I even said it's impossible to replicate. Impossible to replicate. And I know it sounds so ridiculous because it's Hocus Pocus. It's like, oh, who cares? Whatever. There are certain movies that are of a certain time, and for certain people, they're just perfect. They will never be able to be replicated. You'll never have that feeling again.
Yeah.
It just is special to Hocus Pocus. This is special to it.
You're so right. You're so right. I think David Kushner caught a piece of magic when he was talking to his daughter outside on the deck and saw that cat.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment on, there was just like, it was just that energy, and they captured it, and it's bottled, and we have it forever. I don't know if you found that fact too, but when they were pitching the movie, they dressed the room, like they had like brooms and vacuums hanging from the ceiling, and they had candy everywhere to give the whole like feel of the film. Like,
Aww.
like they knew what they were tapping into.
Aww.
You know what I mean? I think about walking into that, and I can't imagine. Like, it would have been so exciting.
How could you say no?
How could you say no? I don't know. I think that concludes all my notes on Hocus Pocus, actually.
Yeah, it kind of does me as well. I feel like everyone who may be listening to this, that you're listening to it because you've watched it before, and you know how magical this movie is. You know.
All right, so I guess we're officially on to part 2.
Okay.
All right, so if you stuck around this far, we are now going to go through our top 10 horror movies each. So it's 20 movies in all with a lot of honorable mentions.
Oh my god, this is so nerve-wracking.
So if you're looking for something to watch this Halloween, I would definitely say you would be...
Here's infinite suggestions.
You're welcome in advance.
Okay.
But also, if any of these are your favorites, let us know, because they're all probably incredible. How did you approach this, ultimately?
That is exactly what I was going to ask you. Okay, so I obviously spent way too much time thinking about this. Like,
Same.
Way too much time. I was going to break it down based on subgenre to try to get a smattering. It didn't, I don't think that's what I did. I think I just basically just did currently in 2020 what my top 10 of all time are, which is really crazy because a lot of what I thought would be on the list is not on the list. They're honorable mentions and maybe in the top 20.
Interesting. Same.
I kind of just had to step away from like overthinking and like doing too much research and too much breaking down and too much formula to just be like, what does your gut saying, you idiot? Maybe put that on the list. And also my list is not in any way, number one is not my number one of all time. It's like in no particular order. They're just my top 10.
All right. All right.
You?
This is, to me, this was the most interesting thing because we approached this so differently. We gave each other the same like criteria, and it's just like so interesting to me. Mine are in kind of a semblance of what I would at least put into sort of a numerical order. At the very least, number 1 and 2.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh,
that's,
no,
you know what I mean?
can't
It's so
mine.
interesting.
Okay, I won't attempt to change mine because that'll make me have a panic
No,
attack.
don't have a panic attack. It's cool. It's cool. I'm just so interested in how we approached it. Like, to me, this is so fascinating. But when you very first suggested this part to the top 10, I was like, easy. No.
Same. I was like, knock it out. Bam.
Yeah.
Nope. And I attempted to try to watch so many movies I haven't seen and like rewatch stuff. And I like ran out of time because I was doing other stuff. I've been trying to like do stuff for Halloween and like get stuff ready. And I was just like, just so much pressure I put on myself.
Totally feel that feel. You know what? I have to thank you though, because I ended up revisiting a lot of horror and just kind of almost like fell in love with it. You know what I mean? Because like there's an ebb and flow to this stuff, you know, and it was so good to watch some of this stuff again.
Oh, good. That makes me happy.
Yeah. So the way I approached it ultimately was like I said to you, it was kind of like this existential thing almost where I was like, oh my God, what is anything? Who am I? Like, what is life? So what I ended up going with was I was like, you know, horror movies to me aren't necessarily what's scariest. It's about like this, at the end of the day, it's about this energy that's like fun and like, I'm not a social person, and so they kind of give me the same, like, do you remember when we used to go to the corn maze and pretend we were characters?
Yes, and I always annoyed you because I was like, this is where a murderer would go. You guys were always like, shut up. And I was like, just imagine you just have an ice pick and you come out and you just zip, 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 and you go back into the corn.
But that, like, the energy and fun that horror brings to me and, like, fills in my soul is, like, about the social life that I really don't have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about, like, the friendships that are there. Like, it's about the party atmosphere for the parties I don't go to. It's this that's kind of what we're trying to capture with the Hocus Pocus. That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
It's that fun. So that's what I based my list around, as opposed to, like, what scared me the most or whatever.
Okay. A lot of mine, like, looking back on it now, a lot of mine they resonated with me from either childhood. It still sticks with me. It's still something that I annually search to watch, or I still remember specific imagery or something like that. Or it's just like the human dynamic. I just love a good human back against the wall story. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's so great. So a lot of mine are based on that.
That's cool.
Those two criteria, basically.
Yeah. Formative years is a very big theme here.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my God, I'm nervous. Okay.
So with that said, let's go to number 10. We'll do a countdown here. So number 10. What's your number 10?
And remember, it's in no particular order because this movie is like one of my favorite movies of all time. I have a shrine to it over there. Alien from 1979.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so masterfully done. It is beautiful. It's terrifying. There's so much about it that makes you feel uncomfortable, but also the human dynamic in it is that you understand these people. Even though they're in space doing something crazy, they're cryogenically sleeping, like all of that makes no sense. But when they get out and they're just humans in a ship being humans, you can understand.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes it so much more terrifying. Everything about the movie is perfect.
It is.
Ripley is my god.
Yeah. I for sure. And that's always been a truth of yours. I mean, that's been a common theme throughout. Ripley's always been your go-to.
Ripley's my babe. She's just a boss. The Alien and Aliens are two of my favorite movies of all time. It's such a great story. It's so perfectly executed. Sigourney Weaver's a babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned that one. Well, it's not funny. I knew that was going to be on your list. Because of course. It's like your ride or die. It's always been there. It's obvious. If you know you know that there's a connection.
Yeah. You're number 10.
Okay, so number 10 for me. Yeah. Number 10 was Demon Knight, 1995.
Holy shit. Okay.
Did you see it?
I feel like I did forever ago.
I love Demon Knight. I'm sorry that I gave it so low on my list, but like it was just so like, we overthought this thing so hard. It should be higher, but Demon Knight is phenomenal. Okay, so the reason it's on my list, I guess I'll break it down. First of all, it's a Tales from the Crypt feature-length movie. And Tales from the Crypt, I'm a huge Tales from the Crypt fan.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Fair, yes.
This movie is so good. It's a personal classic. So I've rented this thing so many times when video stores were a thing, We have a mystery hero and an unlikely team of hotel residents battling demons over a key filled with a mystery liquid.
I'm just so blown away that this is on your list.
This is on my list. This is so on my list. Demon Knight is one of my favorite movies. It is definitely on my top 10. I could not put this movie on my list. Billy Zane is reason enough to watch this. You think you saw him as a villain in Titanic? You have not seen him as a villain. He is so fun to watch in this movie. He is a gem to watch in this movie. He is hilarious.
I'm still reeling. Man.
Him in the cowboy outfit, he is the best. He is the best. He is the best. We also, in this movie, have a young pre-Smith Jada Pinkett.
Yeah.
as our final girl.
Yeah.
She takes up carrying the torch of like fighting demons, very Buffy-esque.
Very Buffy-esque. But
So badass. She outsmarts Billy Zane. The whole thing is amazing. It is so worth your investment in this movie. I love it. Top 10, 100%. Yes. 1995. Yeah.
I'm a little shook right now. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I can't believe that wasn't that. All right, that's great. But I remember definitely watching it multiple times, being like, "What the is happening?"
It's amazing. It is amazing.
Okay,
the
well,
cast
now that
is incredible.
I know that it's like number 10 in your heart, I'm gonna definitely rewatch it this October.
Yeah, check it out. Seriously, do
shit.
yourself a favor. It is such a treat. It is underrated. Billy Zane, man, just so good. What's your number 9? Moving on up.
Number 9, again, remember, in no particular order, is Scream from 1996.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, honorable mention, Scream 2, 1997.
Yes!
Because I couldn't pick.
I know.
They're
Scream 2 is phenomenal.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I like Scream 2 more than Scream 1, but there's so much setup and story, and like the whole structure of Scream is great. I can't deny it.
I know. No, I hear you. I totally hear you. I remember memorizing like the Dewey speech. Like I could do it. One sec. Scream 2.
Okay.
How do you know that my dim-witted inexperience isn't merely a subtle form of manipulation used to lower people's expectations, thereby enhancing my ability to effectively maneuver within any given situation?
Oh, that was great.
I remember it since 1997.
I'm going to be honest, when Scream came out, I didn't watch it right away because I was like, whatever. Again, because I didn't want to be honest and like open with people about stuff, my opinions, whatever. Watched it and loved it. I don't think I told anyone for a decade. Watched it all the time and just like secret style. And then I don't know what happened in the past 10 years or so. I was just like, no, Scream is amazing. Yeah. I openly love Scream so much.
Yeah.
It is so great.
I agree.
Yeah. It says that it's a comedy horror. I don't buy that.
No, neither do I.
I don't feel that.
It's self-aware, for sure.
Yeah. Like, and definitely, like, now that it's 2020 and I've seen it, like literally every year in October, I watch all 4 movies in a day. It is not healthy, but I do it. It's just the thing I do by myself because no one would tolerate all 4 movies at once. But I'm just like, whatever, this is my life. Yeah. It's okay. In 2020, looking back, it is kind of funny, sure. But like, it's still creepy. It still works.
It still works. Like, nowadays, like, we're cynical and that's it. That's the end of the sentence. In 1997 or 1996, we were cynical, but we had the humor about it. And that's what this was the first self-aware horror movie I ever watched.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's done perfectly. The fact that one of the characters in the movie says, like, I feel like I'm in a Wes Craven movie, that's great. Wes Craven plays a janitor dressed as Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Great. It doesn't take away from any of the tension building and the creepiness and the weird shit. And also Sidney Prescott.
She's a goddess.
Her and Ripley are my final girls. Actually, there's another one later. But she's up there. I feel like if I was in that situation, I would be a Sidney Prescott.
I would want to be. Sidney Prescott, huge influence. First final girl I've ever encountered and really registered, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so number 9 for me, Pumpkinhead, 1988.
I love your brain. I love your brain. Are you kidding me? Demon Knight and Pumpkinhead? Oh, shit, yes.
I'll let you know a secret. I think about the movie Pumpkinhead at least once a day. No joke. So, what I wrote about this is a monster movie with soul. And it truly is. It truly is. We have Lance Hendrickson playing a grief-stricken father looking for revenge after some reckless teens or 20-somethings. I never can tell.
It's in the 80s, 90s.
Right?
No one knows.
They're probably 40, but let's be honest. Accidentally kill his son. He seeks the help of a creature from the pumpkin patch who is watched over by a horrifying witch. Right? She's so scary before you even get
She's
to the
like
creature.
Translucent creepy.
So
like,
creepy.
Her skin is gross.
And the creature helps dole out revenge, but it's not for free. It is this great commentary on the desire for revenge and what that does to you internally, but it's expressed through this epic and visually, like, perfect monster. This monster movie is just like chef's kiss.
It is great. I never even considered it to be on my list.
One of the most underrated of the horror villains, in my opinion, for sure.
I'm gonna make just another list. That's all I'm doing right now. Other list.
All right, so number 8. What's your number 8?
Demons from 1985.
I know the cover.
So this is a new one on my list for me, and this is a thing that I had a really hard time about and probably led to my anxiety, because I talk to people a lot and I'm like, I love horror movies. People think that I've seen all horror movies of all time, always, but I'm one of those people that is a chronic rewatcher.
Same.
So if I find something I like, just the other day in my studio while I was working, I watched The Burbs 2 times back to back.
Can I be honest with you? I was going to actually ask you about The Burbs and where you thought that fit into.
It's on my list of alternates because I couldn't fit it in. I couldn't fit it in. Legitimately, it wouldn't let me. I even looked on other things and it just is classified as a thriller comedy.
I know. I was going to ask you where it stood. It would have been on mine too. It
is one of the best movies ever made. Tom Hanks is a golden god in that movie. Everything that he says and does is pure magic.
Corey Feldman is in it as well. And we have...
I called the pizza dude.
And Courtney Gaines, of course, from Children of the Corn is in it as well as one of the weirdo neighbors. Yeah.
And also Carrie Fisher is the super annoying great wife.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie so much.
I feel you. So the one you're talking about, Demons, that's the Argento movie?
Yeah, well, he co-wrote it. I don't think he directed it, but he co-wrote it, and it is great. Yeah, to go back, this is a new watch for me, probably in the past like 2 or 3 months. I've watched it, and it blew my mind. I've always seen it on lists and stuff, and like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'd watch that. It is so intense. There's maybe 10, 15 minutes at the beginning of the movie that sets up enough of a plot, like just bare bones. It starts slow, you know, it's okay, but maybe 15 minutes into the movie, it turns into a nonstop, in your face, insane. You have no idea what's going on. Everything is happening at once. It is ridiculous. I remember, like, after watching it, I physically felt ill, because I don't think I was breathing properly while watching the movie. Like, my mouth was just open and I was just like, whoa! The entire time. I don't think that I breathed at all for like an hour.
Right.
If no one knows what, it's Demons from 1985. It's like a group of random people are invited to a screening of a mysterious movie only to find themselves trapped in the theater with ravenous demons.
I thought it was the one that happens in a theater. I thought I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they get random mysterious tickets and just like a handful of people get there, and like, again, it's just humans in a crazy situation and they have to like respond. Most other movies build tension and they're like, okay, let's see what happens if there's a creepy sound now that you're in a room or whatever. Demons just says no, and they turn it up to 11. They keep it at 11 the entire movie. It's so great. And there's one moment, I don't feel like I'm going to give anything away. The movie is called Demons, but there's one demon. A demon comes out of a crazy place, and there's just one shot of it running away behind some curtains. It doesn't just run behind the curtains, it hits the curtain a little bit. And for some reason, that just burnt into my brain.
I've seen it on a lot of top 10 lists. I don't think I've actually seen it, though. It's pretty gory, isn't it? Like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just like don't stop. There's no time for breathing. They just do crazy gross shit back to back to back to back to back to back to back. It's great. It's great.
I have to check. Speaking of making new lists, I'll put that on mine for sure.
That was my number 8. What
Cool.
is your number 8?
So my number 8 is Dolls from 1987.
I don't think I know this one.
You'll know when you look at the poster. Have a look.
Oh, yeah, I do. Okay.
Yeah. So Dolls.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was directed by Stuart Gordon, who of course is Reanimator and From Beyond. So can't go wrong with that anyway.
No.
So this is I just find this to be like a delicious little horror tale about dolls. It's terrifying, but it's sweet.
Okay.
So the dolls and the creepy old toy maker and the wife have like this code. Well, clearly the dolls come to life and are murderous. But they
Clearly.
but the dolls and the toy maker and his wife, who are super creepy, have this like code of ethics or like the system of following of who gets killed by the dolls, and there is a sweetness to it. It's about the importance of never losing like your inner child, which I think speaks to Halloween and everything we're talking about with nostalgia anyway. But anyone who kind of is a child or has a connection with their inner child is safe from the dolls, and it's just, I always found it very sweet, very supernatural. It's so good. It's so good. It's like a little precious gem of a horror movie. And interestingly, it began with the poster. They had concept art for the poster, and they worked backwards and wrote the film based on that image, which you see. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
No,
that's
it's
how
so
movies are made.
Sometimes.
Like, that's
Sometimes.
Okay.
But I remember renting this so many times. And as far as doll movies go, like, I'm a huge fan of the Child's Play, like, at least the first couple. But this one captured my heart. This one, there was something very special about dolls.
I have a hard time with dolls, I think. I've never really dived into the whole, like, dolls as creepy, weird shit before. So that's going on my to watch.
It's good. If you're gonna watch a horror movie about dolls, this is definitely the one I would recommend, because like it kind of plays with the idea of like, oh well, maybe they're creepy, but maybe they're sweet, and like some people find them comforting and some people find them terrifying, and like they're really big themes in the movie. Like it's something that I watched kind of just like on a whim when I was a kid, and it just stayed in my, wheelhouse of films, or like my like little Rolodex of films, and I rented it all the time.
Also, for dolls, the poster is awesome, and the tagline is "They walk, they talk, they kill."
Yeah,
pretty good.
And there's
pretty
a great
good, straightforward.
There's a great bit with what do you call those dolls? Like those like moon faced like punchy dolls, like they used to like in the olden times. It was There's a great plot with those types of dolls anyway. I don't know
what you mean.
Yeah. It's good. It's definitely worth the watch if you're looking for something creepy and supernatural.
So is this one of the ones that you rewatched recently to like double check that you were into? Or
no,
were you
Demon Knight was. And I was just like rocking out the whole time. I was like, this is better than I remember. And I love Billy Zane. I might watch Demon Knight again a couple times too. I feel like I should have made that higher on my list now. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so ridiculous. I feel like there's so much weird sex shit in it, and it's like uncomfortable. but
there's this great scene like at the end, like with the girl, like when Jada Pinkett's character, like they're like the key puts the like liquid on the bus, like she's going off to fight demons, and she puts the liquid on the bus so no demons can get in, and then this like cowboy walks up to the bus and it opens the door, and the guy's like, are you getting on? And he's like, I'll wait for the next one.
Yeah,
it's just so good.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And she have the cat. She has
a cat.
Yeah, it's like her familiar, but not at all her familiar. It's just a cat.
It's cool though. It's like a nice little side. Yeah. Number 7.
Okay, so this is more classic. It's The Exorcist from 1973.
Good choice.
I can't escape this movie. It's so good. I remember the first couple of times trying to watch it because I didn't watch it all the way through the first time. Well, probably the first 2 times I tried to watch it, I didn't watch it all the way through. It creeped the shit out of me. It was one of the movies that when I actually watched it in entirety, it was in the middle of the day because I was like, nope. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot to say. It's
Some of them
brilliant.
just blow your mind, and that's where it is.
I was talking to my brother about this. We've started talking about the top 10 list and stuff, and like what is horror, what is get you, what there's so many like subgenres and whatever. And like I don't believe in God like most people do. White dude with a beard. I don't believe in that. I believe there's something, but like I don't believe in God. I don't really believe in the devil, but I really love stories that use that as the plot device. I find it so rad. I don't know why, but I love like God versus devil shit. It's so good.
Because it's kind of like what we know as like humans to be like the most extreme of like the polarity of life. You know what I mean? It's like you can't, like I remember watching Supernatural and they were like, well, where do you go after God and the devil fight? Like, where do you go? Like, that's what you do. That's like,
right?
Yeah, it's like the extreme of like our spiritual understanding or something. Yeah.
Even though I don't believe in either side, I still buy into The Exorcist. Just the slow eroding of relationships and reality. It's a really good movie. Just in general, horror or not, it's a great movie.
I think my favorite thing was that the demon called himself Captain Howdy.
Yes. Also, I've stopped messing around with Ouija boards after I watched this movie. I feel like that's gonna always be one that I will love to go back to. Like that was also, I guess, part of the criteria for the list is that like I will always like watching it.
Yeah.
I will always love watching The Exorcist.
Number 7, Children of the Corn, 1984. I had to get some King in here, obviously.
Of course you did.
So I don't know. So we had like 4 video stores. Oh, no, we had 3 video stores that really like shaped my formative years. So we had Blockbuster here, we had Churro Home Video here, and we had Zodiac Home Video.
Sounds so demonic and bad.
So I remember every Friday night, my family had a tradition of going to Blockbuster and eating at Frank and Gino's because they were side by side.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Right?
Shit.
We'd eat in the Marilyn Monroe section because they had like sections. And then we go to Blockbuster. And Blockbuster had a deal at the time, which was like 10 movies for $10, something crazy. This movie was consistently in my 10 movie roster. Every weekend, this was one of my... I probably had this rented like most of the time Blockbuster existed. Children of the Corn meant so much to me as a kid.
All right, dude, I'm going to be honest. I've never watched it. I actually have it on VHS. I've tried to watch it multiple times and it didn't work in the VCR I was using. I tried to watch it a couple of days ago and it worked and I was watching it and I fell asleep. No shade on the movie, but I think I just like ate a lot of salty food and fell asleep.
To be fair, it's more of a slow burn, I find, for a horror movie. I'm surprised I had the patience for it as a kid, but I don't know, it struck the right chord at the right time. I also had like a huge boner for Malachi. I don't know. Anyway.
Whoa!
So weird.
Sorry.
But anyway, I know, I'm the weirdest person. My crushes are so weird. They're like all over the map.
Same.
But so this was based on a Stephen King short story, of course, that was originally published in Penthouse, but later showed up in his anthology Night Shift. And I re-rented this all the time. It couldn't not be on my list, you know?
I love how you say it's a slow burn, but isn't it within the first like 5 minutes a whole diner gets slaughtered?
Yes. Okay. But after that initial like diner slaughter, it's pretty slow burn.
I've only watched till I guess the couple is like going to the town.
Right.
Like, right. So they see the body and crazy stuff and they're trying to get to the like the second town, but then they end up going to the other one.
Yeah, there's some parts.
That's how much I know about this movie.
No, and that's true. They like go to. It's about a couple who drives through a town, and they end up in this town that the children have killed all the adults, which was the will of the god, which they call He Who Walks Behind the Rose, which in the movie is represented by just like kind of like this moving dirt, like this force within the ground. But no, kids are in charge of the town, and for some reason it works. And then when you turn 19, they murder you because you're no longer a kid. And I just remember, like, it really makes me feel like, it reminds me of something my dad has always said, which was like, one of the most troubling times in his life was when he turned 30, because he grew up in a generation that was like, trust no one over 30.
Oh.
And this movie, like, very hippie mentality kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie so reminds me of that, because it's like, they killed you once you're like, you're an adult now, sorry. And all the kids were like, yeah, no, checks out, we're an adult now, the end. It's horrifying, but there's something about it that works, and it's just such an interesting thing. I don't know, it really stuck with me over the years. Yeah,
putting it on the continue to watch list.
I love it
because I'm gonna be honest, I love Linda Hamilton, so
yes, there's a pre-Terminator, I think pre-Terminator Linda Hamilton,
84
correct? I could be off about that.
I feel like it was the same year, Terminator. I was gonna be like,
that's close. Yeah. Interesting. Good job, Linda Hamilton.
Okay, so my number 6 is Dawn of the Dead from 1978.
Amazing. Yes.
Because it's so great. The opening, everything up after the opening, it's so good. Flyboy, Spam, don't knock it, it's got its own key. It's a great movie. I also have it as an alternate tip of the hat, Return of the Living Dead from 1985, because that's also a great ride. That's a good movie.
Yes, you think this is a costume? This is a way of life.
Yeah, that's the one.
So good.
Yes. But Dawn of the Dead, I always forget how much I love it. So, like, pretty much once a year, I kind of toss it on, and I'm always like, oh, yeah, Dawn of the Dead, sure, it'd be cool to watch right now. Every time I put it on, I forget how great it is, and I don't do anything. I usually toss movies on while I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
But every time I put it on, I'm like, oh, well, no, I'm just sitting and watching Dawn of the Dead, I guess, because it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
so
I
good.
feel you. That's awesome. Good. I applaud that pick for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like the last couple ones I haven't had to say anything because it's like they're classics. And I feel like most people would know them. So I don't really have to tell you. Dawn of the Dead is about zombies and a mall. You know it.
Yeah. Okay. My number 6 was Monster Squad 1987.
I wanted to break the glass in my hand. Oh, shit. I love that movie.
Love this movie.
Wolfman's got nards.
This is a great movie to... Okay, anyone that's listening that hasn't seen this, that has kids, this is a great horror movie to get your kids into horror.
Yeah, that's how you start. That's how I started.
Absolutely. It has it all. So it's awesome 80s nostalgia, 1987. Great scares, actually. The beginning is terrifying. Like, there's a lot of good scares in this movie.
Yeah.
And the famous monsters are there. So, you know, it's got everything.
Also, they had, like, Burger King toys, I'm pretty sure, that were super dope. I feel like they did.
Oh, that's probably cool.
I'm going to Google the shit out of this right now. Yeah, they did. 1997, Burger King Universal Studios Monsters. Yep.
That's awesome. Yep. I did not know that. That is so good.
But yeah, you're right. That movie rules. It's so good.
Yeah. So it was directed by Fred Decker, who also directed Night of the Creeps 1 year before. Spoiler. That might be an honorable mention later.
Okay.
They were filming Night of the Creeps when Monster Squad got greenlit. So there's a washroom scene in Night of the Creeps, and you can see the graffiti on the wall in the washroom scene. It says "Go Monster Squad," which I love.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And also the montage of the song from Monster Squad has been literally in my head for 20 years. So rock until you drop.
I have big feels for Monster Squad. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was another one of those movies that I watched when I was younger, and I wanted to be part of it. It was like Goonies style, where I was like, yeah, I could be a Goonie.
This is the horror movie version of Goonies, I would say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I love that it's on your list.
It's so on my list. It couldn't not be. All right, so that's the halfway point. I guess this will be number 5.
I'm just putting Monster Squad on my rewatch list because it's been a while. I'm so excited to know what your number 1 is. Because you said that it's like your number 1 and 2 are actually like worthy of the title of 1 and 2.
If I died tomorrow and they had to write my favorite movie on my gravestone, I'd be totally fine with them being that on my gravestone. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know why they would choose to do that, but if they needed to do that,
Sarah,
I would be cool.
She liked this movie a lot. Buffy reference. Okay. So my number 5 spot is Phantasm from 1979.
No, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Phantasm. That's awesome and interesting. I never think about Phantasm, but yes.
It's so good. Okay, so if you're listening and you have no idea what the Phantasm is, it is a movie about a teenage boy and his friends who face off against a mysterious grave robber known as the Tall Man, who keeps a lethal arsenal of terrible weapons with him. So that's IMDb being shitty and not telling you anything cool, but it's a really good movie.
Yeah, I think most people that like think about this movie would think about like the spheres that kind of like chase you.
The phantasm balls. Yeah, the spheres are so good.
And like the yellow blood or whatever that's about.
The fact that like the first time I watched it and like the first dude that gets a phantasm ball in the face is a bad dude and he dies. When it shows him down on the ground and he's twitching and shit, it actually shows him pissing himself. And Mike, the like main character who's really young in the movie, he's early teens, he witnesses it all happening and he has to like scooch away from the urine. I was like, that is a horror movie. Yeah. That is accurate. There would be urine. I don't know why shit like that. I'm like, yes, credibility.
Yeah.
Even though none of this movie makes any sense. The actual plot makes no sense at all, but the fact that they at least kind of try to explain it to you through the movie, I'm completely fine with it. Mm-hmm. You know, like it makes no sense, but they're like, oh, they take these people and crush them down and use them as slaves. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yep, got it.
I have to go back and watch
I'll accept it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I never even thought about that movie.
Also, there's a great scene where the character Jody and Reggie meet up after Reggie is an ice cream delivery dude, which is precious. But like he ends his shift and then goes and meets Mike's older brother Jody, and they just have like this little jam sesh on the front of their deck where it's just like such a precious little song. It makes me so happy. Reggie says we're hot as love and it warms my heart. And also, legitimately, my aesthetic for dressing and how I am as a human is Mike in this movie. So basically, I'm like a 13-year-old dude from... No, legit, I'm a 13-year-old dude from 1979. Just jean jacket, bell-bottom jeans, striped shirt.
Love it.
Gonna fight some tall man.
Oh, good choice. That's so good. I have to go back and watch that for sure.
Yeah, because Angus Scrimm really is a beast in that role too.
So number 5 for me is The Cabin in the Woods 2011.
Ah, that's on my sub list. It's so dope. Okay, yeah.
It's amazing. So like clearly this movie was a love letter to all the weird horror kids that wanted to give us something different to watch, that knew the tropes, that knew all the things, and it delivered. I love this movie.
I feel like you actually sent me something in 2011. You sent me a letter or something where you were like, oh no, you sent me The Outsiders on VHS, and you were like, you had Post-it notes on it, and you were like, don't forget me. Also, watch Cabin in the Woods. And I was like, okay. And I watched it and was like, oh, this movie's so good.
Yeah. That's a fair assessment of my whole personality and friendship.
That's the thing that you did. And also, Cabin in the Woods, legitimately, I highlighted it right there. It's on my sub list because I wanted it in there, but I couldn't. There's not enough.
No. So the reason this ultimately made my list was, so this came out in 2011. And so when it came out, I saw it in theaters. It was a particularly depressive time for me. I don't know. It was like life just felt kind of like chewed gum, you know, like that feeling. It's redundant. It was just like, it was a depressing period. And when I saw this movie in the theater, it just like awoke something in me. that was like good medicine for that thing. And I left the theater like healed. Like no joke.
I love it.
I went on to watch this in the theater 3 times before I left. I adore it to this day. It was my happy thought. Talk about hook and like being able to fly with a happy thought. It carried me through 2011, maybe even 2012. I don't want to say it cured my depression, but like kind of did.
I love that though, because like I had the same thing, but with Rogue One.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going and watching that by myself and like so many tears and so many feels. And I was like, oh, I'm a better person because of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel you. It happens and it is awesome.
It's rare,
Aww.
but it happens.
I also Sigourney Weaver. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, is that f***ing Sigourney Weaver?
Yeah.
It's like, is it though?
Yeah.
And it was, and I was just like, my heart was so full.
Yeah.
Also, it's like very clearly Buffy. What is it, season 5 with the Initiative?
Oh yeah, what season is the Initiative? Yeah, it's totally that
I feel
feeling.
like it's season 5. Yeah, I feel like it's like
absolutely.
where he was like, I'm gonna make this a movie now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I gotta say, like when I watch this, like I'm one of, and I know like we watch movies together for many years, and like I'm one of those people that like for all the shitty like kind of things I think about love, the first question I ask Dani when I'm watching a horror movie is like, so who are you dating from this movie? Like, you know, like who's your boyfriend from this movie, or who's your girlfriend from this movie? Fran Krantz, man, the pothead, so good.
Yeah, same.
So good.
Same answer. Legitimately though,
so good.
Thor. Well, like I love that. Like, in case no one has seen it and is listening to this, like when Thor tries to be a Thor-like character and defeat what's happening, I lost it when it eventually did not work out.
It's so funny. They build it up
like,
so hard.
What?
I know. It really subverted your expectations about it, and that's the first movie that really like did that for me too, I think, in this genre, like where I really noticed it. It was just so in your face and hilarious and so good. It was like clearly written by people who loved horror and not just like suits, you know?
Yeah, I'm so glad that it's on your list because I had a really hard time not putting it on my list.
Yeah. And the zombies were actually like probably one of the scarier like zombies that I've seen. Like it's just such a good movie. All of
the like in the lab stuff where it's like the breakdown of all of the different subgenres of horror and everything is so great. Where it's like zombies. Yeah, you picked zombies, but no, like what is this, like zombies, but you picked like brain dead,
like it was like homicidal maniac zombies. Family zombies or whatever. Yeah. They like broke it down.
Like the weirdest subgenres of subgenres of subgenres, like so good.
Or like the lab guy who just wanted to see a merman, so he just picking the merman.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good. If you haven't seen it and you love horror, like you need to get on
It's a fun ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun ride.
All right, so what's your number 4?
My number 4 is The Howling from 1981.
Yes.
Yeah. So this deserves to be in my top 10, but also this was one of the ones that I picked when I was trying to do the subgenres where I was like, oh, I need a beastie one or whatever. And I was like, oh, The Howling. And then when I got rid of the subgenre structure, I'm still like, oh, The Howling. Howling's so good.
Howling stays.
It's so good. IMDb says about The Howling, after a bizarre and near deadly encounter with a serial killer, a television newswoman is sent to a remote mountain resort whose residents may not be what they seem. So they're werewolves.
Yeah. If you can tell by the name.
They big bad beasties.
Yeah.
This actually, when I brought up earlier about the She Kills podcast and talking about Dee Wallace, I forgot she's in The Howling. I didn't want to say it because I was like, oh, The Howling. But Dee Wallace plays the main character in The Howling, and it's so good. It is such a good movie. Do not ever watch the sequel. It is trash. Just trash.
Right.
Like, The Howling has similar sort of transformation scenes as an American Werewolf in London. Like, it had some pretty cool special effects.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the sequel just had people with fur on kind of having sex.
Right.
It didn't work. But The Howling is, from start to finish, it's a beautiful story. Like, I think it's great. Well told, well shot, well acted. Dee Wallace is great in it.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth a watch. I remember the first time I watched it was probably like 4 years ago, and it was like a random VHS haul we got and popped it in, and I was like, well, this is a game changer. This is probably my favorite werewolf movie, I have to say. But I do have 2 honorable mentions. American Werewolf in London from 1981 is classic, and it's great. It's funny. It's brutal. It's great.
I love that movie. It's so comedic, though, too, the elements.
So good.
It's so good.
Like, so good. But also I have Ginger Snaps, because that's another amazing story.
Totally. Yeah.
They all give you different things. They all give you very different views and very different things. But yeah, I think The Howling is my go-to if I was into a beastie movie.
The werewolf genre is so interesting because they, like, it's not as set up as vampires. Like, everyone kind of can make their own rules and their own lore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really fun place to play, for sure. So my number 4 is Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors 1984.
Yes. Okay, cool. Cool.
So I really needed Freddy on this list. He's my favorite of the horror villains.
Dude, I don't get it. I don't get it. No, I don't. I was talking to Tall Guy about this. I don't get it.
Really? I'm sorry. Yeah. It's my soul.
See, this is the thing. Like, Freddy resonates with so many people and they love him so much, but I just don't get it. Let's go back to Phantasm. That movie makes no sense at all. Tall Man is just a creature from another dimension or another planet that crushes bodies down and uses them as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
That makes no sense. But they explain it in the movie. They're like, oh, this is what he does. Just in passing one sentence. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I understand now.
Yeah.
I shouldn't, but I do. But in all of the Freddy movies, I'm just like, but why is he in their dreams, though? Like, why is he in their dreams? I don't get it. He kills kids and then is in dreams? Question mark?
Right. So I think when I can't really justify that, because when I explain to you my reasons for this, I think it's more like a personal thing, because, okay, my introduction to Freddy is where it begins.
Mm-hmm.
So I've told you countless times, I think, that my dad would take me down that horror aisle in Jumbo Video. As I graduated and got a little older than 5, I started saying to myself, well, I'll take myself down this aisle. I'm brave enough to go down the horror aisle myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd start doing it. But I wouldn't look at any of the movies because the covers would scare me, right?
Yes.
So I'd walk down the aisle and I wouldn't look at anything. And so one of the times that we were there, I walked down the aisle and wasn't looking. You know, I had my head down. And I ran into a cutout. And when I looked up at the cutout, movie fashion, slow up, it was a full cutout of Freddy. So my introduction to him was like almost like this godlike thing where I was just like
wow.
physically ran into him and then like toes to the face, you know. I was a small kid and that was a big cutout. And so that was my introduction to him, and it was just really profound and it really affected me. In a cool way, though. That's kind of where I stood as a kid. And then when I got older and could actually watch the movies, Nightmare on Elm Street 1 I found was like amazing. First, you know, like your introduction to him. He's got those long arms in the alley. It's such like a scary visual.
I love that shot so much. Yeah. It's so good.
So good. And then you have the like Johnny Depp in it randomly.
My God. The tiny shirt he's wearing.
Yeah, totally. Crop Top City. And then you have Nancy, who plays the final girl, and it just really resonated with me. But so I knew I wanted him on this list, especially, and now looking back, like especially, there's a great documentary called Scream Queen. I don't know if you watched it.
I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that gave me a lot more. It just enriched my whole like perception of Freddy Krueger as a character and stuff, and the whole franchise. So anyone watching, check out Scream Queen also won. Sure.
Yeah, that's true. It is a good watch.
It is. But when I had to get really serious, I was like, well, is Nightmare on Elm Street my favorite movie on this list? The answer was no. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors was.
Patricia Arquette has the power, man.
She has the power. We have the Wizard Master.
Oh my god, I forgot about the Wizard Master. Yeah.
So there's so many great characters in this movie, I think is why I love it.
Yeah.
Also is kind of like where in the series Robert Englund kind of developed a sense of humor about Freddy. Mm-hmm. Like before this, he was just scary, you know? Mm-hmm. And now he's like, you know, like one of the famous deaths like that's in it, like everyone references in the series is when he comes out of the TV and like slams, "Welcome to prime time, bitch."
Yeah.
It's just funny. Like there's like this dark humor, but there's humor, and I don't know. I can't even count how many times I've rewatched this. This is my favorite. It develops the story along, like the plot. Like we learn backstory about him, all the things.
Plus Nancy's in it.
Nancy's in it again.
Pretty rad. Yeah.
And also, like, it takes place like in a like kind of like a mental health facility for kids because they're not sleeping because they're all trying to fend off Freddy. And one of the there's a new kid that comes, and when she's getting introduced to all the other kids, one of the kids is just like, "Welcome to the snake pit." And I have said and thought about that about different things in my life over the years, like way more times than I can count. I have said "welcome to the snake pit" about like jobs I've done, like places I've been. Like it's definitely become like a personal meme.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's precious. Yeah, I'm totally gonna rewatch it now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take away from anything. It's just I just like of all of like the franchises, like Freddy is the one I least understand.
Interesting, because to me he's the one with the most personality.
No, I prefer my crazy bad dudes to just be mute and evil.
Oh, see, I like the one-liners.
Yeah, no, I just want them to be trudging along.
Right. That's fair.
Emoting nothing.
Emoting. Kicking over people's boom boxes in New York. All right, so we're really closing in now. We're on the top 3, aren't we?
Yeah.
Number 3, yeah.
So my number 3 is also one of my top 10 just in general best movies of all time. It's The Thing from 1982.
Awesome choice. Yeah.
It's stellar. It is one of the best movies ever made. Kurt Russell is so great and lovely in this movie. I really don't have a lot to say about this movie other than it's fabulous. Watch it.
As far as monster movies go, like sci-fi, but like creature features, like, yeah, I agree, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so if anyone, for whatever reason, has never seen The Thing, it's basically a research team in Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims. So that right there is pretty great. It's directed by John Carpenter, so you know it's fabulous. Starring Kurt Russell. Is a beast.
There was like a scene where like they're testing blood or something, like to see who's infected.
Yeah,
like,
see who's human. And I love Kurt Russell is basically like the hero of the movie, and it's McCready he's rough, alcoholic, kind of a piece of shit, but also great at the same time, anti-hero sort of shit.
Yeah. But
yeah, he's the one that's like in charge of like the blood testing, and it's so good because he knows he's human.
Yeah,
it's so good. The special effects in this movie are insane.
Agreed.
And this is like before CGI and everything, so practical. It's all just like bubblegum and jello and weird shit, and just like dudes trying so hard to make something you've never seen before, and it works.
100%. Yeah, I prefer practical effects. Going back to dolls, like yeah. Practical effects are where it's at.
The original, from when was the original? 1953 or something like that? I don't know. It is a joke in comparison. It's still good, but it's nowhere near as intense. But again, this goes back to like my love of horror film and just the human. How does a human deal? Because these dudes are in the middle of nowhere. They have nothing. They have no one.
Yeah.
They can do nothing other than try to stay alive. And a super confusing, shitty ending that is brilliant. Like, it does, you're not satisfied at the end of the movie, but I love it because it's just like question mark, question mark. I do have an honorable mention though, and it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978.
Yes.
So it's like very similar vibe.
Yeah.
Similar vibe.
Totally.
You don't know who's who, you can't tell who's human, but I think the thing kind of has like a heightened tension.
Well, just the landscape, like just like the desolation
Just
of like
so good.
Yeah.
Like, what would you do?
So number 3 for me, The People Under the Stairs, 1991.
Holy shit! That movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
I can't even articulate how much I love this movie.
Oh
I've
my
rented this like a
God.
gazillion times.
This is taking me back. Holy shit.
Right?
Yeah, okay, so I was probably 7 the first time I watched this movie.
Yeah.
And it f***ed me up for so long. I couldn't go down my aunt's stairs into the basement because I was like, I don't know what's down
There's
there.
people, man.
I knew what was down there, but in my head I was like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Absolutely.
my God. Also, isn't there like weird tarot card?
Yeah. Actually, that's
Yeah.
the point I brought up. Yeah. This was like the first reference to tarot I ever think I saw in film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the main character is nicknamed Fool, and the movie opens with his sister reading his cards, which comes up as the Fool, and thus begins our journey.
Yeah. Oh my God. Crazy. I haven't watched this in years.
I love this movie. There's so like there's nothing. This is almost like a perfect movie, I would say. It's so good. It was written and directed by Wes Craven, so bringing up Wes Craven again.
Yeah.
What do you expect, right? It's also, I realized this after, and probably just like looking at it through a lens of modern day, but this is like the first formative horror film in my formative years that I saw that had like a black protagonist at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but like a kid who I think who played the Fool, Brandon Quinton Adams, who was 11 or 12 when the movie was filmed, and he's like only using bravery and his wit and outsmarting like the villains. Like he's so good. It was one of the first memories I have where it subverts my expectations about monsters, because like the people under the stairs are the monsters, but really they're not. Really, they're kids who have kind of been like kidnapped and cut up by the crazy homeowners, which are played by the two people that play the crazy people in Twin Peaks as well. They're a great dynamic. I can't remember their names right off, but
Everett Gill and Wendy Robbie.
So good.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Cool.
It's so badass. The monsters technically end up helping, like the people under the stairs, who I guess are scary monsters. Like they look scary, but they end up being like the heroic people.
Yeah.
And help Fool like save Alice and like break free and foil the bad guys. It's a great movie.
Flip the script.
Yeah, totally.
Holy shit. Yeah, I totally forgot all about that movie.
Yeah. And there's this whole like, I guess like commentary now that I wouldn't have caught as a kid with like, you know, wealth, like the have and the have nots, like the people like, and like because the rich people are kind of crazy and they're like the town turns against them. That scene where like the bad guy opens the door at the end and like the whole town's there and Fool's sister's just in front. So good.
Is there a scene in this movie, I could be completely wrong, but like where the water is really hot? And
yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh my God. I don't think I've watched that since I was 7. I'm going to totally rewatch that.
Love it. I love that movie. People Under the Stairs, 1991.
Oh my God. We're like top 2.
Yeah, number 2.
My number 2 is The Changeling from 1980.
Oh, nice.
It's changed me so much. It's not something I watched, and the first time I watched it was last Halloween. I watched it, and it changed me. It changed my idea of what a good horror movie is.
I'm not mistaken. That's the one with the kid that's haunting the house and the guy is there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so after the death of his wife and daughter in a car crash, a music professor staying at an old mansion is dragged into a decades-old murder of a child by an inexplicable presence in the mansion's attic.
Yeah.
So The thing is, like, I knew nothing about this when I put it on. I was just trying to watch like a horror movie a day.
Mm-hmm.
And Shudder was like, "Hey, watch this." I was like, "Cool." So I knew none of that. And the car crash brutalized me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
He's in the
"Holy
phone
shit."
booth or whatever.
Whoa. Yeah. Before the title credits. Yeah. But everything about this movie is so masterfully done. Like, it's not a haunted house. It's not a spooky ghost story. It's like beyond that. It's like a hybrid. It's like a true crime thriller, haunted house, ghost shit. Like, it's so good.
It is. That's a great one.
It freaked me out so much because it seemed so real. Like, nothing about it went too far or went too crazy or anything like that.
Yeah.
It seemed plausible. There are two scenes in particular that just scared the shit out of me. I was watching it by myself at night. The scene where he's listening to the recording.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. The way that it slowly builds tension, I was like on the edge of my seat.
Right.
And nothing happens. Nothing happens in the scene. It's not scary. It's not terrifying. But for some reason, that movie just like is so, they knew what they were doing so well. It just makes the skin crawl, hair stand up. Oh, so good. So good. Yeah, definitely worth a watch.
It is. It's a slow burn. Like, it is a slow burn.
Mm-hmm. And then it literally lights the house on fire. Again, like, had no clue what it was about. And so when it started and like the ball bouncing and the piano playing itself and all that sort of stuff, I kind of started to be like, oh, I guess it's a haunted house movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much more than a haunted house movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so much more. It was so thrilling. And it was just such a good, exciting, fun watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I say it's a slow burn and like was slow because I watched it when I was a kid.
Yeah, and it's also like you don't care. You don't care that ghost gets justice when you're a kid. You're like, whatever, man. Make with the spooks.
Yeah.
For an honorable mention, going with the whole haunted house sort of vibe, I picked The Shining from 1980. Because all things considered, I do think that is a haunted house movie.
Well, I think Stephen King would agree with you.
That was my number 2. What is your number 2?
Okay, so I'll preface this by saying I knew that our list would overlap somewhere.
Okay, cool.
So, Scream 1996, number 2.
I was gonna say Scream. Okay, cool. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It's so great. I don't remember how old I was when this came out. Let me just do the math real quick on this. Yeah, so I was 11. So this shaped like pretty much my whole personality more than any movie ever made. I will say. It gave me a sense of like what I thought high school would be like, who I would date, what I would be like, and it really kind of became my taste in movies, just in general.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it did inspire me to start writing horror movies. I got super into that when I was 11, and it prompted me to spend the summer that I watched this movie writing a horror script, which was not original. It was about a clown. But it did inspire my passion for writing, and it also was the reason that I can type without looking at a keyboard now, because I spent so long on it.
I'm so glad that you had Scream at number 2. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. It influenced way too much of my life not to have it toward the front of my list.
No, that's a good call.
Before we get to number 1, I wanted to park it so we could mention some more of our honorable mentions, if that's cool.
Ooh, yep.
Cool. So before our number 1, let's do some honorable mentions.
It didn't make the list, and I'm actually kind of surprised by Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it didn't get there, because it should be there, but it didn't make it.
It's a classic, for sure.
It's so terrifying. That and Psycho and Silence of the Lambs, I always kind of lumped together in my brain because they were inspired by the same dude. Mm-hmm. So they all are like equally worth the same amount of love.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know why it didn't make it on the list. I think that was the first time that I ever understood that directors made choices that seemed up but super worthwhile. Like, they never showed any of the cast what Leatherface looked like until they filmed with Leatherface.
Right.
So imagine like a 7-foot tall Gunnar Hansen with a skin face sliding a giant metal door open and grabbing you and running away.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the first time I was like, oh, directors do that? Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good choice. I also really love how in number 2, the cover of the movies, the Texas Chainsaw Family posed as the Breakfast Club.
I know.
Mine is Creepshow 1982.
Oh, yay!
This would have made the list if we were doing top 11. Is the thing, right?
Yeah.
So this can't not be on the list. It's George A. Romero, first of all, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and The Dark Half, which I hate to say this about my Lord and Savior, but it's probably my least favorite Stephen King story. Anyway, yeah, so it's got, the reason this is on here, actually, I thought about you when I put this on here because I remember we've had a conversation where we both expressed our love for anthology horror. So that's one of the main reasons, but also it has my 2 horror dads in it, who I consider my dads. So Stephen King was the writer, and he also played Geordie Virgil in the first story, The Meteor Shit. I don't know if you're...
Yes. Yep.
I challenge anyone who's watched this movie to look at a plant again and not think meteor shit. But anyway. And Tom Atkins, who plays the dad in the prologue and the epilogue. Tom Atkins is an angel of a freaking human. He's in so many horror movies. I just adore him. I look at him. If I'm ever feeling depressed, I'll just look at a movie he's in, or I'll watch some like interview with him, and I'll feel better about life. Like, he's just, he has that effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was in The Fog, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And another one of my honorable mentions, he starred in Night of the Creeps, 1986. You know, it's like, your dates are here. But yeah, no, this is just perfect. It's the perfect film. It's, I can't really say more than that. It's just so good. All the stories are so good. Leslie Nielsen is like a crazy psycho.
Right.
Who can hold his breath for a long time. It's just so good. So our number 1 picks for horror movies of all time that we're recommending to you this Halloween is...
Oh my god.
Go for it.
Surprise, surprise. Halloween. 1978 by John Carpenter, the legend.
Perfect choice. Yeah.
I think that this is the like most perfect slasher film ever made.
It is. I mean, yeah.
You can't go wrong with Halloween. Even though like there's some losers in the world that are like, "Oh, Michael Myers doesn't make any sense. How could he drive?" It's like, "Oh, yeah, you much rather a guy that can get into dreams for no reason, or like a kid that died that came back to life and is wearing a hockey mask or a sack on his head?" Like,
a kid that died and came back to life and continued to grow up to an adult somehow.
That to the beefiest, muscliest adult ever. Yeah, maybe he could learn how to drive. He watched a movie once and could figure it out. Like, get over yourself. But yeah, Halloween. Halloween is great. The soundtrack alone is worth it.
That score is probably the most iconic one of any horror movie, I will say. When you hear it, you know.
I don't know. I don't think that there's anything wrong with this film at all in any way, shape, or form. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is great in it. She has a great scream. Like,
she's the original scream queen.
Yeah, she's one of those people that just like completely make no sense to me when they scream. Like, I can't scream.
Neither can I.
So, no, I just like sound like I'm haunted or something. Like, there's no terror behind my scream. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah, that's why she's, you know.
She got the title.
She got the title.
There's a lot of good in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of unnecessary crazy kills. A lot of really good tension building. A lot of knitting needles and necks.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
And a
Great movie.
pretty good franchise overall anyway. Like, it unfolds well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But do you see what I mean? It's like they just kind of are like, oh, he's evil from the beginning. And that's it. That's all I need. He's just been evil since he was a kid. Got it. Cool. Okay, what is your number one?
So I'm sure you can guess this at this point through process of elimination. Again, with an overlap with yours. My number one is Ginger Snaps 2000.
Yay!
So of course it is.
On there.
This is the one that if you put on my gravestone, I'd be totally cool. So I watched this for the first time at the cusp of going into high school, which was the perfect time for me. I don't know if you found this too, but it fueled me with this power that just like got me through tough times. Like, it's just like her energy is so good in that movie. I don't know what it is, but it's amazing. And also, so this movie is super female centric. This is, I think, the first movie I saw where like females characters were like the villains and the heroes. It was just kind of like so female centric, which is what I was kind of looking for, but really didn't know. Also, the soundtrack with Glassjaw is amazing. Werewolves are my favorite famous monster out of the classic monsters. So.
Woof, really?
Yeah, there's just something so much more, I don't know, like, I just like the whole id of them, I guess. Like, they're just so, like, grounded and real and just, like, I don't know, rugged? It's cool. I love them. I love them. And I love the whole concept of, like, equating it to womanhood and, like, getting your period and how, like, that could be confused or aligned somehow with, like, you know, like, the side effects of that and turning into a werewolf could be so similar that you could get them confused.
The inner beast.
The inner beast.
Femininity. Yeah.
Or, like, you know, some people call it the curse. So it's, like, it's kind of funny that... Yeah, I think that's the tagline of the movie. They don't call it the curse for nothing.
Oh, shit, that's good.
And then, like,
true.
The main character, Ginger, who, of course, is the werewolf, she's a freaking goddess. She's a queen. I adore her forever. And she's played by Catherine Isabelle, who's a Canadian gem. She's from Vancouver, so we can claim her, and I love her. And that scene where she's walking down the hallway and she just, like, is embracing, like, her sexuality and, like, her wolf. It's
that 90s slow-mo shit, man.
Yeah.
That we talked about before, where it just, like, was so powerful. And I thought I thought I looked like that when I walked down the hall.
Same.
Certain days, and for sure I did not.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least we don't have any visuals. We can just have that picture in our mind.
Yeah, be like, I felt that. That's good enough.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for joining us for this special episode of the Coven Slumber Party. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to the podcast, whether you just found us or have been attending every slumber party so far. Have a very blessed Samhain and a happy Halloween. Keep your magic potent and your pizza hot, and we'll see you at the next slumber party.
Ow!
Perfect.
Precious. Fucking demon night.